Okay, I have a feeling we're going to have a little healthy debate this segment, but let's start with what we can agree on. We need to fix our infrastructure in this country. That would put people to work, improve vital roads, bridges, airports. It would improve safety, also be good for the economy, a way to move goods as efficiently as possible. Trouble is, how do you pay for it? Now, that's where the consensus ends. Trump's campaign website outlines how he would do it, and I'll quote here directly. The Trump infrastructure plan features a major private sector, revenue-neutral option to help finance a significant share of the nation's infrastructure needs. This innovative financing option, they go on to say, would serve as a critical supplement to existing financing programs, public-private partnerships, Build America bonds, and other prudent funding opportunities, end quote. Not everyone, however, buys the model. Bernie Sanders, for one, not thrilled. Independent Vermont senator calls it corporate welfare, issued a statement calling it, quote, a scam that gives massive tax breaks to large companies, billionaires on Wall Street who are already doing phenomenally well, end quote. I have two very different opinions at the table. Mr. Parasuti, I'll start with you. Why do we want to do these projects differently than we did in the past? The Hoover Dam, the bridges, whether the Golden Gate or the GW, why do we now want to bring corporations in?
I wish I could tell you I was shocked that Bernie Sanders is so vehemently opposed to taking money out of the public trough where he can't give it to his union cronies and everyone else that's been bilking taxpayers for months and years, etc. There is a new way that has not been tried and true. It has been tested in a couple areas in the United States. It's shown glimmers of hope. A private sector, a public-private partnership, an infrastructure bank, whatever you want to call it, a pool of money where the private sector puts in money and where they reap a return from user fees, tolls, etc., is an excellent way to go. It works in Europe. It's one of the only things that the European governments do and frankly do well, and we need to try it here because it is a solution that we absolutely have to put to the test.
Answer the question, Richard, because I know you have major issues with this. Hey, if all told, if the projects that are being pitched would be about $1 trillion with a T, if instead of the taxpayers being on the hook here for a huge chunk of it, private corporations did it, what's the downside?
The downside is the taxpayer is not off the hook. And aside from attacking the integrity of Bernie Sanders and unions, which is the same nonsense that got us the Bush years, the fact of the matter is that someone has to pay the costs of these projects. And when you add to the cost that government has, the cost of profit to the corporation, and the cost of market money, not tax-exempt bonds, those two things, about 15 to 20% of the cost, make it impossible to bring these projects in for less money than the public would ordinarily pay. Look at the Tappan Zee Bridge, where you're going to see, because of the bizarre financing, which embrace some private-public partnerships, you're going to see an enormous increase in tolls. Are those not taxes? Are you suggesting that if we call it a fee, it doesn't come out of the public pocket? If what you
But did anybody think, Richard, realistically, that when there's a major infrastructure project, that the public wouldn't have to bear some of the expense? In the case of a toll, that you're paying for better service.
Has to bear all the expense. No one's complaining about that. The question is, how much do they have to pay? You either pay for the project plus corporate profit plus interest rates.
Corporation X. Here's a one debate. I want you can both answer this. Corporation X gets the bid to build a major tunnel project. Let's say, for make round terms, it's $10 billion. So it's a huge tunnel project, okay? You give me the argument for why that corporation will do it more efficiently and it will better for the American public, and then you give me the concern why the corporation will get it. You go first.
Here's the reality. There's recent events that blows a hole through Richard's argument. Okay?
You're not going to use my hypothetical.
Hold on. I'll get there. In the Recovery Act, the so-called term shovel-ready was denigrated even by the president himself. It was proven that the government, if given the money to create infrastructure projects and complete infrastructure projects, can't do it. Can't do it on time, can't do it efficiently. The president himself admitted it. We've been through this before, 8 years ago, and it didn't work. I'm not suggesting that public-private partnerships are a panacea that are going to solve all of our problems, but we absolutely have to put them into the mix in a major way, because the old way of doing things, by the president's own admission, was a farce and didn't work.
Do you have
didn't stimulate the economy.
Policy against fake news?
Okay, just use your time wisely.
Okay.
Explain how
Okay.
it's fake.
I mean, the projects that were put together, most of them worked, some of them didn't. That's been true in the development of the American infrastructure from day one. The New Deal worked pretty well. The Eisenhower Highway Program worked brilliantly. New York has built a magnificent mass transit system without these public-private
How
partnerships.
about one in the last 60 years, Richard?
The one in the last 60
Because you
years?
just go back to my example of the Recovery Act. Give me an example of a shovel-ready project that was a
A
success.
shovel. Well, you're focusing on this term shovel-ready, as though that defines what constitutes government activity. The projects that work are the projects that the New York City subway system in the last 60 years, the Second Avenue subway, which is
great.
It has been great. It's the greatest mass transit system in the world, and you want
The
to.
Second Avenue subway has been a great project. You're going to say that.
Yes. What's wrong with the Second Avenue subway system?
It's taken 30, 40 years,
It's
possibly
No,
longer.
no, that's in the planning stage.
but there's
The-
one
God,
part-
how
that's
far
just
of a
not
budget?
true.
The big dig in Boston.
If
Andrew,
you
I'll let
want
try
to
and
stop
going.
fake
give me
news, stop fake
where
news.
give me
planning stage,
where
you're correct.
you're
Planning stage.
concerned. Let's say, let me use John Carlo's best argument that, hey, you go to Corporation X, they're used to getting the jobs done on budget, on time, okay? What's the concern that we're writing them the check to do the job rather than have the U.S. government do it?
Well, you're also giving them a tax break so that they'll get some relief on their bottom line. So it's not just we're giving them the money to do it. I have some other concerns too. Like let's say we decide we need to repave Broadway in Manhattan. That Broadway requires some infrastructure improvements. That's not a toll road right now. So in order to make it work, you have to add a toll to it. I mean, if you want to remake the Tappan Zee Bridge, that's one thing because it's already a toll bridge now and you're just making it a bigger toll. But we have all sorts of bridges and highways that are totally free for people to use right now that are in disrepair, that need help. Under this private-public partnership, near as I can tell, the best way that those companies make their money back is by putting a toll on it. So what are you going to do? Start putting a toll on city streets? My other concern is, forget about Manhattan, forget about the Hudson River. Go up to Orange County. Go up to Dutchess County. Some of those lesser populated areas that also need infrastructure of their own. Where's the incentive, where's the profit margin for private companies to get involved in doing that? I understand if you want to rebuild the Brooklyn Bridge, there's going to be a windfall in it. But to fix Route 46 up north, I don't know.
I have a more petty consideration, which is if anybody wants to take money right now, I'll throw a few bucks on the table. If this happens, and I think we should have a major infrastructure, there's a healthy debate as to how it actually should be paid for, if it even needs to be paid for in the beginning, okay? For a minute, does anybody think Trump's not going to try and figure a way to get his hands, whether it be through his own development or production or to shovel it to some crony in Jersey with a cement company, right? To me, I am so concerned he'll find a way to make a profit off the office of the
I can
presidency.
tell you how it's going to happen, and I can tell you who's going to make it happen that way. They're going to repatriate the corporate profits that have been stocked overseas. They're going to try to put a concessionary tax rate on it, take that money and use it as a one-shot to develop the infrastructure bank. And the guy who's going to make that happen is Chuck Schumer. And what you're going to see is Chuck taking what the nonsense
What will he tax him at?
10%.
I would guess closer to 15, and I even think that's low. Hillary's plan was for about 15. So you could probably do it anywhere from 15 to 20 and still save the corporations a lot of money and still get yourself a pile of one-shot dough, which is what you should use instead of adding tolls to everything that you see so that some corporation can cream the top of the program.
We shall see. I think it's going to happen one way or another, and I think this will be the greatest thing to start off, in this case, the Trump presidency that he could ask for. And I think you're right. I think the guy who will help him get it done is Chuck Schumer, and I think Trump will get the credit here. By the way, how long has Obama been trying to get this thing passed? In the last 8 years to have major infrastructure going through, right? But hey, good luck to you, President-elect. All right, coming up next, George W. Bush had never said a peep about President Obama or his policies, even though he disagreed with it. He took the high road for 8 years. President Obama, will he extend the same courtesy to Donald Trump? And do you think he should if he's going to rewrite or get rid of his signature proposals? We'll talk about that after this.